Welcome back to Tell Me More Stories Told as podcast, where we kind of like plunge into history's most captivating tales. Today we're setting a course for one of the most legendary maritime disasters of all time, the RMS Titanic.
Ah, the Titanic.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the biggest ship of its time.
Right.
It was a behemoth, a floating palace that stretched nearly 900 feet long.
Wow.
Almost 3 football fields laid end to end.
It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of scale.
Right.
It must have seemed invincible at the time.
That's precisely the point. The Titanic embodied Britain's ambition to demonstrate its engineering prowess to the world. For passengers, stepping onto the Titanic wasn't just boarding a ship.
Right.
It was entering a world of luxury and opulence, a microcosm of society itself.
So you had millionaires mingling with immigrants,
Yeah,
all seeking different dreams on the same voyage.
precisely. And while first-class passengers enjoyed lavish suites and gourmet dining, even third-class accommodations were considered remarkably comfortable for the era.
But beneath the surface of this technological marvel, I understand there were some critical oversights even before the ship left port.
You're thinking about the crew.
Yeah.
While many were seasoned professionals,
Right.
a significant number were new to the ship. Engineers, stokers, stewards,
I see.
all vital to the Titanic's operation, but not necessarily familiar with its layout or emergency procedures.
And I remember reading that the Titanic's departure was rushed.
Yes, adhering to the schedule was paramount.
Hmm.
So this lack of familiarity, coupled with the pressure to sail on time, adds a layer of complexity
Right.
to the events that unfolded.
Speaking of complexity, let's talk about the perfect storm of factors that led to the tragedy, starting with the icy conditions.
A mild winter that year had pushed an unusually high number of icebergs into the North Atlantic, right into the Titanic's path. And to make matters worse, the lookouts in the crow's nest,
Okay.
the very eyes tasked with spotting danger ahead,
Right.
they didn't have binoculars.
Wait, they didn't have binoculars? How is that even possible?
A seemingly insignificant oversight with enormous repercussions.
Oh my
The
God.
key to the locker containing the binoculars was accidentally left behind in Southampton.
Almost unbelievable that such a small detail
I know.
could have such a huge impact. But even without binoculars, they received warnings about the ice, didn't they?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
On April 14th, 1912,
Really?
the Titanic received 6 separate warnings about ice from other ships.
6 warnings. Why on earth didn't they slow down?
It boils down to the prevailing mindset of the time.
Okay.
Speed was king. Transatlantic liners competed fiercely for prestige and the fastest crossing times. There was also a sense of hubris, a belief that technology had conquered nature. They simply didn't believe ice could pose a serious threat to a ship as grand as the Titanic.
So they steamed ahead right into a field of icebergs, despite multiple warnings.
Yep.
It's chilling to think about.
Yeah.
Now, before we dive into the heart-stopping moment of impact, let me remind you to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next thrilling chapters in our Titanic saga.
And believe me, the story only gets more gripping from here.
All right, let's set the scene for that fateful night. It was April 14th, a calm, moonless night.
Imagine a sea as smooth as glass, the stars twinkling above their reflection, dancing on the water's surface. Beautiful, yet deceptively dangerous. That glassy calm often signals nearby pack ice, a crucial detail the lookouts sadly weren't aware of.
And then 11:40 p.m., the lookout spots it looming out of the darkness.
An iceberg directly in their path.
The Titanic tries to avoid a head-on collision, right?
They did, but not entirely successfully.
Oh.
They managed to turn the ship enough to avoid a direct impact, but the iceberg still grazed along the starboard side.
Was that enough to bring down the unsinkable ship?
This is where things get really interesting. Contrary to popular depictions, the damage wasn't a single massive gash.
Right.
It was a series of 6 relatively narrow openings along the hull caused by the iceberg buckling the steel plates outward.
So like a zipper ripping open along the side?
Precisely. And while these openings might seem small compared to the Titanic's massive size, their cumulative effect was devastating.
Oh, wow.
The force ripped apart the rivets holding the steel plates together.
So those openings extended over a significant portion of the hull, right?
Over 300 feet. The damage crossed multiple watertight compartments, rendering them ineffective.
Oh, no.
The Titanic, despite its advanced design, was taking on water faster than anyone could have imagined.
So now we have this seemingly invincible ship slowly sinking. What was happening on the decks above?
Right.
Were passengers aware of the danger?
At first, many remained oblivious. Some felt the impact but dismissed it as a minor bump.
Right.
It's hard to fathom that a ship that size could actually be in danger.
It's a testament to the Titanic's grandeur, I suppose.
It is. But as the minutes ticked by, the reality of the situation began to dawn on the passengers and crew. What's fascinating here is the contrast between the technological sophistication of the Titanic and the limitations of human perception.
Yeah.
Here you have this marvel of engineering,
Right.
equipped with wireless telegraphy, a cutting-edge technology at the time. Yet so many people on board were initially unaware of the gravity of the situation.
It's like their minds couldn't grasp the possibility that a ship this grand could actually sink.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And this delayed reaction had a cascading effect on the events that followed.
So how did the crew respond once it became clear that the Titanic was in serious trouble?
They began preparing the lifeboats, but the evacuation was far from smooth or efficient.
Right.
Remember, the Titanic carried enough lifeboats for only about half the people on board?
That's a shockingly low number. I mean, wouldn't they have anticipated the need for more lifeboats in case of an emergency?
It's important to consider the prevailing mindset of the time.
Okay.
Lifeboats were seen primarily as a means to transfer passengers to a nearby rescue ship, not for a full-scale evacuation. The idea of the Titanic actually sinking was so inconceivable that it simply didn't factor into their safety protocols.
A chilling reminder of how even the most advanced technology can be undermined by human assumptions. And then, of course, there's the infamous women and children first protocol.
Right.
How did that play out in the chaos of the sinking?
It was a time of rigid social hierarchies.
Right.
And that absolutely played out during the evacuation. The order was given to prioritize women and children for the lifeboats, but even that wasn't carried out uniformly.
I imagine there was a lot of confusion and conflicting interpretations.
Exactly. Some officers adhered strictly to the protocol, allowing only women and children. Others, seeing empty seats in the lifeboats, allowed a limited number of men to board.
So even in the face of disaster, human judgment and biases influenced the course of events. And you mentioned earlier that social hierarchies played a significant role. Wasn't there a difference in how steerage passengers were treated during the evacuation?
Absolutely. Steerage, the lowest class of accommodation, was primarily occupied by immigrants seeking a new life in America. For many, their ticket represented their life savings, their one shot at a better future.
And they were the ones most impacted by the lack of lifeboats, right?
Tragically, yes. Steerage passengers faced locked gates, longer routes to the upper decks,
Oh, wow.
and a confusing maze of corridors. Many were trapped below decks, unable to reach the lifeboats in time.
It's heartbreaking to imagine their plight trapped below while the lifeboats are being loaded above. Did any of them manage to make it out?
Some did, but the odds were stacked against them.
Right.
The language barrier made it even more difficult to understand instructions or navigate the chaotic scene.
Yeah.
It's a stark reminder of how social inequality can have life or death consequences.
So you have this scramble for the lifeboats, this stark contrast between the opulence of the ship and the desperate struggle for survival. And as the Titanic was sinking, the band famously continued to play. Is that true?
Yes, it's one of the most enduring images of the disaster.
Yeah.
The band played on their music, offering a semblance of calm amidst the panic and chaos. Accounts vary as to the specific songs they played,
Right.
but some survivors recall hearing "Nearer, my God, to thee," as the ship slipped beneath the waves.
It's such a poignant image, almost surreal. What do you think motivated them to keep playing as the ship went down?
It's hard to know for sure,
Yeah.
but perhaps they saw it as their duty to provide comfort and solace to those around them. Maybe it was a way to face their own mortality with dignity and grace.
Right.
Or perhaps in the face of the unimaginable music was their only anchor to a sense of normalcy.
It's a testament to the enduring power of music even in the darkest of times.
Yeah.
So the band played on lifeboats were being lowered, and the Titanic itself began to break apart. Was it the dramatic single plunge we often see in movies?
No, the reality was far more complex and perhaps even more horrifying.
Oh.
The Titanic's bow, weighed down by the inrushing water, began to sink faster,
Right.
pulling the stern upward at an increasingly steep angle.
So it wasn't a sudden disappearance beneath the waves.
No, the ship gradually succumbed to the relentless forces of physics. As the bow sank lower, the immense strain caused the ship to break apart near the third funnel.
Wow.
The stern momentarily settled back into the water before finally sinking beneath the surface.
For those still on board, those who hadn't made it onto the lifeboats, those final moments must have been absolutely terrifying.
Unimaginably so.
Yeah.
The ship tilting at an impossible angle, the sounds of metal groaning and twisting, the screams of people losing their footing and sliding toward the edge. And then darkness as the ship's lights finally failed.
It's a scene that defies comprehension, a nightmare brought to life. And for those who ended up in the water, the chances of survival were slim.
But the water temperature was just above freezing.
Oh my gosh.
For those plunged into the icy depths, death came quickly from hypothermia or drowning.
Were there any stories of survival from those in the water?
A handful of people managed to cling to debris or overturn lifeboats, and a few were pulled from the water by those in the lifeboats. But for the vast majority, there was no escape.
It's hard to fathom the sheer terror and despair those in the lifeboats must have experienced.
Yeah.
They were adrift in the vast, icy expanse of the North Atlantic,
Right.
surrounded by darkness, the cries of those in the water fading into the distance.
And the agonizing wait for rescue? They huddled together, clinging to life, uncertain of their fate.
Right.
Some must have wondered if anyone would even know they were out there.
What about the Californian's Hamprint? That was the ship that was close enough to potentially rescue passengers, but didn't respond to the Titanic's distress signals, right?
Yes, the Californian's inaction is one of the most controversial aspects of the Titanic disaster. Imagine the frustration, the disbelief of those on the Titanic, seeing the lights of another ship so close.
Right.
Yet their signals went unanswered.
It seems almost inconceivable that they wouldn't have responded to distress signals.
Yeah.
What was the reason for their inaction?
There were a number of contributing factors.
Yeah.
The Californian's radio operator had gone off duty for the night, and although they saw the Titanic's flares, they misinterpreted them as company signals or simply celebratory fireworks.
So a series of miscommunications and misinterpretations essentially sealed the fate of those who could have been saved.
Yes, and this incident fueled years of debate and scrutiny.
Right.
It highlighted critical flaws in maritime communication protocols and raised crucial questions about the responsibilities of ships at sea.
The Californian's role in the Titanic disaster serves as a stark reminder of the importance of clear communication and vigilant attention to distress signals.
Yeah.
It's a lesson that resonates even today in an age of advanced technology and global connectivity.
Absolutely. The Californian's inaction also underscores the human element in these tragedies.
Right.
It's not just about technology or regulations, but about the choices people make, the assumptions they hold, and how those factors can have life or death consequences.
And then in the early hours of April 15th, the Carpathia arrived, having received the Titanic's distress signals, and raced through the night to assist.
But it was too late for so many. Of the over 2,200 people on board the Titanic,
Wow.
only a little over 700 survived.
It's a staggering loss of life.
Yeah.
The Titanic, a symbol of human ingenuity and ambition,
Right.
now rests on the ocean floor, a haunting reminder of the fragility of human life.
And its legacy continues to shape our world in profound ways.
Yeah.
The tragedy prompted major changes in maritime safety regulations, including requirements for enough lifeboats for everyone on board, mandatory lifeboat drills, and 247 monitoring of radio communications.
These regulations born out of tragedy have undoubtedly saved countless lives in the years since.
Yeah.
But the Titanic's legacy goes beyond regulations and safety protocols, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It continues to fascinate and inspire, prompting ongoing research, exploration, and reflection.
Why do you think the Titanic continues to captivate our imaginations over a century later?
I think it's a confluence of factors. The scale of the tragedy, the human drama, the stories of heroism and sacrifice, the haunting images of the ship sinking beneath the waves. All these elements combine to create a narrative that resonates deeply with us.
It's a story that speaks to our own mortality, our relationship with technology, and the enduring power of hope and resilience in the face of adversity.
And it serves as a poignant reminder that history is not just a collection of facts and dates,
Right.
but a tapestry of human stories, triumphs, and tragedies that continue to shape our understanding of the world and ourselves.
Well, thank you for joining us on this journey into the heart of the Titanic's story.
Of course.
We've explored the ship's grandeur, the fateful events that led to its sinking, and the enduring legacy of this tragic event.
It's been a privilege to delve into this chapter of history with you.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring the many stories that history has to offer. There's always more to learn, more to discover, and more to share. Remember to hit that subscribe button for more captivating deep dives into the past.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep the stories alive.